Hey, everybody, and welcome to the OT Unleashed podcast. We are so excited today. This is episode 13, and we are with one of my good friends, former patients, retired Army Sergeant Josh Wetzel. Josh, thank you so much for being on here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Fired up.
Yeah, dude, I'm so excited. We have been, in touch over the years, but, to be able to be face to face with you is such a gift. And I just, I can't thank you enough for, offering your time and whatnot. So I want to dive right into it because your story is pretty incredible. And, to be able to be a part of the journey that you've been on and then now watching you thrive past that is really it's kind of the ultimate gift as a therapist to be able to see somebody do as well as you do, and not all stories are the same, and that's why we want to have kind of different perspectives. So Josh, first things first. All right, so you're living in Alabama right now, and
Yep.
in Auburn. Yeah, is that
Yeah.
pretty accurate? There's a
Yeah.
small kind of college there that I think people might be aware of, is I think a university, like Auburn or something like that. Is that a thing?
Yeah. A lot of people probably haven't heard of us. Auburn University. We had the number one basketball team in the nation for a couple of weeks. And no, I mean, it's just a small school.
Small school in the SEC, right? All right. Well,
Yeah.
let's rewind first before we get into all that. Let's rewind a bit. Tell me. Okay, so you're in the army, and kind of this is like circa like 2012. At this point in time, before you deployed to Afghanistan, like, what are you doing? What's your job? Like, what is your existence in the army prior to deployment?
Yeah, so I was in the infantry originally. I came in the army as an 18 X-ray. I finished selection. I finished language school, and then I failed a 5 mile run right before I headed to the next area of training. And so I just got orders to go to an infantry unit
Yeah.
up in Fort Lewis, Washington, in Second ID. And I was, just a normal grunt. I have my airborne wings, but we weren't an airborne unit,
Yeah.
which I kind of enjoyed.
Yeah.
And we were a striker unit, and so I came in. I was an E4 when I got there,
Yeah.
and so I was already immediately put into like a team leader role. Um, and yeah.
Okay. So this is 2012 or 2011. When did you deploy? When did it start?
Yeah, I deployed in March of 2012.
2012. Okay. So 2012, you guys, are you married to Paige at this point? Right? Right.
Yeah,
So,
so we got married in 2010, so about almost 2 years.
okay. So you're married, no kids at the time, and you have to leave your wife, your family, and you're headed to Afghanistan. Where in Afghanistan were you?
We were right outside of Kandahar in the Mushan province.
Okay. So you go in, it's March 2012. Take us through kind of the series of events that kind of led up to the attack, your injuries, etc. What did that look like?
Yeah, so everywhere we went, our biggest threat was IEDs.
Yeah.
And so everywhere we went, we just went like ducks in a row behind a metal detector,
Yeah.
which, as you know, in the military, that's, completely opposite of what they teach you.
Right.
And that was, completely new thing. And when we first got there, we didn't really know who was going to run the metal detectors. But I always say, God didn't bless me with a healthy fear of anything. So
Yeah.
naturally, I took over the metal detector, volunteered for it. I wanted to get good at it. I wanted to lead from the front.
Yeah.
I didn't like being in the middle or the back. And so that day, May 31st, 2012, it was like we were on day two of a 3-day mission. We were way ahead of schedule. And we were walking along, and we were walking with the wall to our left. kind of open field to our right, and then there was an open field coming up in front of us. And I could see like a lower spot in the wall. And we had gotten pretty good at finding and clearing IEDs. And so we started targeting those areas because that's usually where they put them.
Yeah.
Um, and as I was getting to the end of the wall, there was a road, a dirt road in front of us. And I could see a line of rocks across the road, which usually signals like there's an IED in the area. So I thought originally it was on the road. So I was like, hey guys, I'm going to be a little more careful going across this, mark it real good so everybody knows where to go. Um, and so, we clear the road, everything's good to go. Start walking across the field to the wall, to the low spot in the wall. And I clear in front of it. Pretty good area. That way everybody's got,
A
if you're
big
going five
width.
feet
Yeah.
one direction or the other, you've got some safe space. And then as I went to clear the other side, was when I stepped on it. And it turned out that was the first IED in our area with no metal content in it at all. So like my metal
Wow.
detector couldn't even pick it up. They eventually got, metal detectors that could pick up the carbon rods. Um, but yeah, so instantly
Yeah.
stepped on it. I can remember flying through the air. I can remember landing on the ground. Um, everything.
All right. So I'm gonna, for some of our viewers who or listeners who don't know, explain an IED. What is it? What do those
Yeah.
letters mean? How do they build them, etc.?
Yeah, so in our area, an IED is an improvised explosive device. And in our area, most of them were usually just like two pieces of wood that were separated by like a piece of foam or something like that. And there were two wires that connected to basically like a yellow, they used a lot of yellow jugs, like fertilizer jugs, and that usually had some sort of like explosive material inside of it, and then it was also connected to a battery. That way, when you step on it, the pressure plate, when you step on it, it would complete the circuit and ignite the explosive device.
Okay. And they can come in all forms and shapes and sizes. Like you said, a fertilizer jug. I've seen rice cookers,
Yeah.
regular just water jugs. I mean, they can use anything. And what kind of stuff do they typically put in these bombs? Like it's not just explosive, material. It's other stuff too. What other kind of stuff do they put in there?
Yeah, they put a lot of stuff in there usually. Just usually anything that will cause more trauma, like anything from like screws to rocks to just anything that's going to cause more trauma on the body when it
Yeah.
explodes.
Yeah. Yeah, and as hopefully most of our listeners know, like that was one of the main forms of injury for troops that were serving overseas, because it was a non-traditional war, right? It was a war that there was no really battlefront, it was asymmetrical, and you never knew what you could expect, right? They didn't fight you, for the most part. They didn't fight you head on. They kind of fought you from the shadows, and that was tough.
Yeah.
Whether that be the IEDs or they would have mortar rounds and indirect fire, stuff like that. Okay, so what do you remember about being from the point of injury? Do you remember getting loaded on a bird and getting medevaced out? Do you remember that part?
Yeah, no, that's actually kind of a funny story, if you can look at it that way.
It's funny
So, like I
now,
said,
right?
I can remember flying through the air, landing on the ground, everything. And my medic was actually my best friend. We were right next to each other all the time. Like I said, when we first started in Afghanistan, I was more towards the middle or the back, and he was always right behind me. And in our tent, we slept right next to each other, and we were best friends. And
Yeah.
um, I can remember flying through the air and landing on the ground, and I was on the ground. I was checking myself out. I looked at my right arm. I've got a little scarring on there, and I was like, "That's not too bad." Looked at my left hand. That was partial. Middle finger was partially amputated. I was like, "I'm not going to look at that again. That's weird." And then I didn't have to look at my legs. I pretty much knew they were gone.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was starting to get all my tourniquets out and everything like that. But I was thinking in my head, like, my medic, his name is Blaine Tippleton, probably one of the best medics I've ever met in my life. But naturally in life, he's kind of shaky. And I was like, if you watch your best friend step on a bomb, you're probably going to be a little
Yeah,
extra
messed up.
shaky. So
Yeah.
I was thinking like, how am I going to calm this guy down,
Like,
And
I need you to focus and get these
yeah,
tourniquets on. I'm bleeding out, bro.
yeah. Yeah, and so first thing, like he gets to me, he's doing his job, he's great, he's checking me, he's asking me questions, and I'm like, "Hey, stop, 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 stop." And he's like, "What? What's going on?" And he's still trying to do my checks. And I was like, "Did you see that sick flip that I just did?" And he was like, "What?" Just shut up, man. I was like, "No,
Dude, this
like
is
if I would have had
amazing.
legs, I would have landed that. You got to admit it." And
Oh my gosh.
he was like, "How'd you know you didn't have legs?" I was like, "Well, you just answered the question for me, so I appreciate that."
Oh my
And
gosh. So you're
from
trying to
that
like
point
kind of
forward, like,
console him, keep him calm, in this
yeah,
moment that he's probably like experienced a massive amount of like mental trauma, like his best friend is like in pieces. Ugh.
yeah, yeah. And that was his first serious casualty. And like I knew it was going to be hard for him. And at that point, I kind of, accepted my fate in those first few seconds. And, like I was the only one in the platoon that needed the fentanyl lollipop because I was allergic to morphine.
Yeah.
And for weeks leading up to this mission, I was like, "What flavor are those?" And he's like, "I got grape." And I was like, "I don't like, I hate grape flavoring. It's disgusting. It's the worst flavoring on the planet." And I was like, "You're gonna have to change that out." Well, sure enough, the day of, he puts this thing on my finger, and I'm like, "What flavor is this?" And he was like, "I think it's cherry. I think you're good to go." And I stick it in my mouth. Lo and behold, it's grape.
Oh
And I was
my
like, "Bro, I'm not
gosh.
sticking
This
this
is
back in my mouth.
amazing.
Like I'll throw up. It's bad." And he was like, "You have to." And so then he starts like trying to force it in my mouth like I'm a child. And of course, in true child form, I, rubbed it in the dirt because, what's ever in that Afghanistan dirt is way worse than
Oh
anything I
yeah.
could be experiencing.
Oh yeah.
So he was like, "Okay, you're gonna regret that." And to this day, I've never told him that I regretted it. So showed
Hey.
him.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So we get you patched up. We get you probably medevac to launch tool. So for those that don't know, usually what happens when you're kind of on the front lines fighting, if you get injured, they go through echelons of care, right? So the first echelon would be like your medic, the person that's work like that'll be the first person on the scene, right? You're injured, they're gonna try to save your life. That's their mission, right? So they will put tourniquets on, stop the bleeding, and the unit calls in a medevac, so a medical evacuation, and they will fly birds out very quickly, and hopefully get the wounded on those helicopters very quick, and then they take them to the next echelon of care, so like a level two, and that's where I was located. Level two would be like your Charlie meds, typically life-saving units. They might have a forward surgical team again to stabilize and get them in really as best shape as they can, and then again move them up further. And so usually that's like Kandahar, Bagram, bigger places that are in Afghanistan. And then once they stabilize even more, maybe some initial quick surgeries, then they'll push them up to launch tool, which is kind of that first place that you would be safe, if you will. And once you get to launch tool, even more, maybe some more surgeries, and then eventually you'll get to kind of your last destination, which is Walter Reed. This is where we met. Okay, so we're at Walter Reed, and now so you what was the date that you were injured? May 13th. What'd you say?
May 31st.
May 31st. What day did you get to Walter Reed? How quickly was
Uh,
that?
June the 5th.
June 5th. So less than a week, you're injured, and now you are in back in the United States. Wh- what do you remember as far as getting to Walter Reed? At that point in time, were you still pretty coherent? Like, had you talked to Paige? Like, what's going on at that point?
Yeah, so I woke up in Landstuhl, and my mom had flown out to Landstuhl. Paige was having some issues with passport and stuff like that because she didn't have one at the time, and so my mom flew to Germany, and was there with me. I had to go through like some breathing treatments to even get on the plane, and they got me on the plane, got me to to Walter Reed. I think I had FaceTimed with Paige while I was in Germany. I don't really remember that a whole lot. But I can remember, coming to Walter Reed, getting off the plane, coming to Walter Reed, and then on to ICU from there.
Okay. So this is the point where you're at the bottom and now you're working your way up, right? So, technically you're at your worst when you got hit, but when you get to Walter Reed, we kind of know the how the progress is going to look, right? In your mind, what did you think your life was going to be like after all these injuries? Your left hand was, you had a kind of dangling middle finger, and you had some other kind of like minor wounds, but you knew that your legs were gone. Like, what was going through your like mental health space? Like, what did that look like?
It's kind of funny. I think God placed the right people in my life at the right time. My wife, Paige, is absolutely just an absolute all-star. I couldn't imagine, what she was going through when she found out that news. Like, she still got the voicemail, when the army called her, and
Wow.
um, you know, like when she came to Walter Reed, she actually kind of set the tone of
Yeah.
my recovery. My mom, she kind of dealt with like like coming out of coma
Logistics.
fog and everything
Oh
like
yeah. Oh
that.
yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
then, by the time I got to Page, like I was a little more coherent, and I had really started thinking about that. And I can remember her walking in for the first time, and I was just like sobbing, and she was like, "What was wrong?" And I was like, "Look at me," like I,
Yeah.
I lost my legs in Afghanistan, and
Like,
she was like, just in pure Page form, she was like, "Well, we would know where they are. We're just not going to go back and get them." And that, honestly, it just kind of
that's
set the tone for
hilarious.
me and let me know like
She's
everything's
your
going to be
rock.
okay.
Yeah.
We can laugh about this, and
Yeah.
um, yeah.
Yeah, so humor was a big deal. It's funny because I think that people have this like misconception that in at Walter Reed or in these kind of places, it's all like gloom and doom, and everybody's like, we had like 200 amputees, like I think while you were there, and it was like the height of, our patient population where we had the massive amount of amputees. But we are always laughing. We're always joking. We're always like when people fall down, we're laughing at them. And it's like part of it is like healing, but part of it's like you're still human, you're still okay, and let's normalize this recovery process. And yeah, Paige was
Yeah.
so great. Like it was really nice. So one of the things that I don't know that a lot of our listeners know. So how the military does it when you have like a pretty wounded or complex polytrauma type of patient, they will actually pay a non-medical attendant. They call it NMAs, right? So they'll pay them to be by their family member's side. It could be a best friend, it could be a parent, it could be a sibling, a wife, spouse, whatever. But they'll pay you to be there and kind of fill in the gaps where the medical team can't, right? So so just as much as I knew you from day one, I knew Paige from day one, right? And that's always a special relationship to know not only the person injured, but their family members, and we all got to be very close. So you go through acute care. Do you remember any occupational therapy that happened to you while you were like up in the acute care space, like in the hospital rooms? I don't know if you remember any of that.
I don't remember a whole lot of it. I just remember seeing the videos of me like sitting on the little disc and like booping the balloon back to the
Yeah,
therapist. And
yeah.
I was like tiny because I looked like I just got back from concentration camp or something.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. You lose a ton of weight. So, okay. So then there we are. I meet Josh Wetzel in June 2012. And honestly, like I like you said before, I think God puts the right people in the right place at the right time. And luckily for you, I was there. I'm just kidding. But we got matched up, and I was so thankful for that because I thought that our personalities really played well off each other. I try to teach OTs in general that, you're a chameleon and really you need to kind of be the right therapist for the patient that you're working with. And so if that's not a good fit,
Right.
sometimes you're not going to have great outcomes, so you come into Walter Reed, you don't have legs, and I remember, I remember your finger being kind of like a little bit wonky, and we were trying to kind of work on that a bit. What are some of the memories you have of like OT? Like, tell me some of those stories.
Yeah. I mean, as you're, my occupational therapist, like I go hard in the paint, right? And
Yeah,
so everything I do is 1,000 miles an hour.
yeah.
And I can just remember, like the first few days of just doing like little things, like stacking Legos and stuff like that, just to try to, get used to my hands and stuff like that. Um, moving on to bigger things, like getting, from the floor to my wheelchair
Oh
and
man,
getting
I
from my
remember that.
wheelchair to the toilet. And like getting from the floor to my wheelchair, like even then, like I got, I had like big boo-boos on my legs where like
Yeah,
like I said, I was going hard in the paint. I was trying to, get that done and check that box. So it'd be like I'd go, to occupational therapy for a little while and then wound care for a little while and then back to occupational therapy. And that
yeah,
was fun. And I can remember like the hand brace that you built, like you
yeah,
made me
yeah,
that had the
yeah.
Batman on
We'll
it and
pop it
like
on here. Yeah, they'll
um
see it.
yeah.
Yeah,
But just everything like that that just helped, physical therapy was good. It helped me
yeah,
get my body strong, but
yeah,
I feel like occupational therapy was really like the outlier, the thing that
yeah.
really like changes you from making you feel like you can do normal life again.
Yeah, man, I couldn't agree more. And I actually remember a lot of your progress. I've seen thousands of patients in my career, and there's a handful that you work with that really leave, that are impactful. And I remember working with you. And I remember I remember the first day that we went from floor to chair. And I remember trying to teach you, like, you don't climb up the chair like a ladder or like you're, like climbing up a tree or something. Like, you actually have to throw your butt up and swivel into it while your hands are on the ground. And it's a very awkward looking thing. And dude, I had done this with so many people, and I think like you got it on the second try. Like, it was like so easy, like simple seeming for you. I was like, yeah, this is exactly how you do it right there, just like that. But I also believe that big part of that was trust. Like, it's not something that is easy because it's not a familiar type of movement. So like a lot of people would
Right.
question, like, no, that's not a good way. But I remember being like, all right, Josh, you're going to kind of come up here, then you're going to kind of swing your hips up, and you're trying to put your butt on that edge of that seat, and then you can bring your arms up and push, like, and you just like did it. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was crazy. And I don't know that I have video of that, but I remember doing some video with you, actually your first steps. Like, I remember being in there, and this is a famous video for a lot of us, that you took your first steps. Paige is walking beside you, sobbing, and I'll put some of that video in here as well so people can kind of see that. But tell me about the first steps, right? So PT and OT work very close together while we're at the amputee center there. And so I know when things are going to happen on their side. They know when things are going to happen on my side. Your first steps, what does that look like?
Yeah. It was actually pretty cool. So my mom was there, Paige was there. I got these brand new shiny legs. I was super fired up about that. And, I put them on and I stand up for the first time and I'm actually like 2 inches taller than I really was. I was
Amazing.
5'8" before and I stand up and I can finally look my wife in the eyes who's 5'10". Um, and that was pretty cool. And then like I start to try and walk and like the mechanics of it, I didn't really have that all down, just because like my knee heights are so different and
Yeah.
like learning how to get the knee to actually engage was
Yeah.
a little difficult, but it was a really cool moment. I think Lori Garmin was in there
Yeah, yeah,
crying as well because Corey was injured at that time, and so
yeah.
it was a really cool moment.
Man, I think for all of us, I think I took that video. One of the things that, I mean, a lot of people know, like, one of my passions is photography, and I love photography. I love to be able to explore different kind of experiences in life, and in that moment, I was like, I've got to capture this not only for them, but for me. Like, I need to remember some of these things, and boy, I sure got some bangers of pictures and video in those moments, and watching you walk. We were all like sobbing in the room. Paige is like sobbing actively, like, this is gonna be okay. Like, we're gonna be okay. We're gonna be able to move forward. Our life is gonna be a life, and that's gonna be good. And man, these blessings that God gave us to be able to experience this, like, I tell people a lot of times, like, my story, I was burned and I have, a lot of kind of history of my own recovery. But without those injuries, I don't have the story that I have. And without your injuries, you don't have the story that you have. And I'm excited to take us into
Right.
the next chapter because everything that we do is all about what you're going to do in long term. Everything that we
Yeah.
work on is about your independence later on. So our OT's motivation is always going to be something where I want you to realize life in the most magnificent way that you can. And I need to make sure that I'm there and present to help you realize that independence. So we're walking. Okay, so I want to fast forward a little bit. Um, Getting in your legs was a huge first step because, I mean, no pun intended, but seriously, because that now spelt the beginning of the end of the, um, I don't want to say the beginning of the end of the recovery, but the beginning of the end of all the first things. Because once you stop getting new things, you start honing in on the things that you're going to need to do. So walking was important. We had started doing other things, and now I can start doing more activities with you while you're upright, right? So PT would work on gait and walking and everything, and I would be like, okay, well, this is how you dress with a prosthetic. Like, how are you going to get your pants over your legs? Do you dress that first? Do you put just shorts on? Your feet aren't going to get cold anymore. So what are we working on with here?
Mhm.
So if we fast forward a bit, we are making a lot of progress, and we're comfortable enough that I get an opportunity to bring. You're a lover of baseball. I love baseball. Andrew Smith loves baseball. We were in a space where we had an opportunity. I had built a relationship with the physician for the Boston Red Sox. And I said, hey, I got a couple guys that I'd like to bring up to Fenway Park, and I was wondering if we could, if there was any way we could get tickets. And it was a simple request, and I knew that we could get tickets, but even bigger, they really rolled out the red carpet for us. Our families were all there, and they put us in like the box right behind home plate. They did a dinner, this whole rigmarole before the game even started. And if you guys don't know, if you're not baseball fans, that view at Fenway behind home plate is recognized as the greatest view in all of baseball, which it was amazing. But before we have that view, we have dinner. And tell me about that experience that we had with dinner. We're all sitting there at the table. I remember it. Food was great. But in the middle of
Yeah.
our dinner, what happened? Tell us what happened. Walk us through that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I grew up a Red Sox fan my entire life,
Yeah.
which is hard to do here in the South where just the Braves are king. And that was my first trip to Fenway. We got to go on the field for bat
Yeah,
practice.
that's
That was
right.
exciting. And then we, go up to I think it was the presidential suite, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken.
Yeah.
So like that's where
Yeah.
like the owner, the president of the
Yep.
club, GM, everybody sit, right? And we're at this beautiful dinner, great food. And
Yeah.
Andrew Smith is like, I got to go to the bathroom. And I was like, because Josh Wetzel does Josh Wetzel things. I'm like, I'll race you there. And so I get up to like almost run in my amputee way and just eat it right first thing. And it's this story is perfect for occupational therapy, right? So, of course, people, with their legs, they're like, oh my gosh, this dude with no legs just fell on the ground. So like all the waiters, waitresses, everybody start running to try and help me. And everybody, it seemed like y'all planned it, like in unison at the table was just like, stop, just like yelling. And y'all were like, he's got to get up on his own. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, why are they going to make this poor
They're
guy get
so
up on his own? But
mean.
that was like a huge, yeah, that was like a huge thing, like learning
Yeah.
how to get up off the floor. And even though I did this dumb thing, I've still got to be the one to get myself up off the floor because I'm going to have to do that the rest of my
Yeah.
life. And so I picked myself off the ground. I limped my way to the bathroom. I'm like,
Yeah.
that was embarrassing. I hang out in there for a few more minutes, get my composure, and then I come back out and lo and behold, fall in the doorway. Just bam. And then the door's trying to close on me. And again, everybody starts running to help me out. Again, everybody at my table, you,
No.
my mom,
Yeah.
Paige, everybody there. No, don't help him up. I think you came and got some pictures of me stuck in the
Oh yeah,
door.
I did.
Um, and had to get myself up out of that door, or like, army crawl
Yeah.
out of the doorway and then
Yeah.
get myself up. And
Yeah.
that was my first like public fall was in
Yeah.
Fenway Park up in the presidential suite.
Yeah, and you did it, right? So we're like, this is one of the hardest things, and we're always like course correcting for a lot of different providers. Like nursing staff always like tries to do stuff for the patients because they love them, right? And I'm like, no, like this is the wrong thing to do. Like, don't do stuff for them. That's the plan. Like I want
Yeah.
them to struggle. I want them to feel what that feels like, and then I want them to feel what it feels like to be able to recover from that. And that was I'll never forget that moment. Like it was incredible. What an incredible night besides that, but then the opportunity to be in a public space, fail and recover, knowing that you're now empowering yourself to be able to do that anywhere, was so
Yeah.
gold. But that was cool. The Red Sox were awesome. Like that wasn't the first time we met them because we were on the field in Baltimore with them. Remember we like met like Big
Yep.
Poppy and Pedroia and
Yeah.
like
Oh yeah.
Bobby V was there at the time. Like we met a lot of those
Yeah.
dudes. It was so cool. Like what a gift that we got doing that. So all right. Well, I want to get into now. So one of the things for the OTs listening out here, when you're at Walter Reed and you're a patient there, when you're surrounded by people that are like inevitably there's going to be people that are worse off and better off, right? So there's Josh with his really tough injuries wasn't the worst off there. I mean, we had triple quad amputees. We had people that had serious injuries to their intestines that they couldn't even eat. Andrew Smith was one of those. Remember, he couldn't eat for like ever.
Yep.
And so it was crazy. Like, so there's all these kind of levels, but everybody's there together. So you're not weird. Nobody looks at you cross-eyed. You're amongst a community of people who accept who you are. So you finish up at Walter Reed. You and Paige know I'm going back down to the South. We're going back to Alabama. And did you go straight to Auburn, or where did you go right after Walter Reed?
Yeah, we moved straight to Auburn right after I retired because the plan was basically that I would start school in the fall. So I left
Okay.
Walter Reed in February of 2014, and then I was going to start in August of 2014.
Yeah. Now, didn't you finish school in like 2016 or something? Didn't you graduate like pretty quick? Or am I
Yeah,
wrong about that?
yeah.
Wow.
Well, so I before I joined the Army, I had like 5 years of college
Sure.
experience with like
All kinds of
get
different
not a
things,
lot of
right?
good grades.
Yeah, me too. I had a 1.28 going into the Army in college. So,
Yeah, yeah,
it teaches you something. So, all right. So
yep,
you get to Auburn. Now at this time, Paige is now transitioning to being a caregiver to now kind of, not that she hasn't been your wife, but she's been really kind of instrumental on kind of making sure that you're recovering in the way that you want to, but also now you're back home. Now she's Paige, just your wife, not necessarily the caregiver, and what's your first? You're going to school. Paige is she going to school also at the same time, or she had already done with school? Because she was a
No, she
college
was done
athlete
with
too,
school
wasn't
and
she?
yeah, she played volleyball at Jacksonville State. And
Yeah,
when we moved back, she got like a coaching job at an NAIA school,
yeah.
Point University. And so she was coaching volleyball.
Yeah, right. And Paige is all in the sports scene. She does announcing. She as a commentator on the games, and she's all over the place. I mean,
Yep.
I'm
Oh
so
yeah.
like for me to see, and even Andrew Smith's wife. She's a judge. Tori. Like it's crazy to watch.
Yeah.
Again, you build these relationships with people, and then you just like start cheering them on. So Paige is doing her thing, you're doing your thing, and did you guys have conversations like, "Hey, do you want to have kids? Should we have kids? Like, what does that look like?" Like, did you ever question your ability to father a child with your injuries, and what would that look like?
Yeah. Yeah. So when I was at Walter Reed, like I had some injuries to, my lower areas. And like some of the doctors weren't 100% sure, like if I could even have children.
Yeah,
And I just took that and tried, and I was like, okay, not a big deal.
we
And
can
then,
try. Yeah,
yeah, and we weren't even trying, and lo and behold, here comes Harper Wetzel,
yeah,
in August of like 2013, so right
yeah,
before I retired. So we
yeah,
had her at Walter Reed,
yeah.
um, and then accidentally the second one came along, and
Happy accident.
2016. And so both of them, accidents.
Yeah,
So those doctors that said that they didn't think that I was going to be able to have children,
yeah.
obviously not right.
Yeah. God's got a different opinion, right? He's the
Yeah.
ultimate consultant. So you have two beautiful little kiddos, and your life is really going well. So this is now we're in like life version 2.0. You graduate college 2016. Like, what then? Like, are you wanting to work? You have a retirement from the military.
hmm
What do you want from life at this point? Like, what does it look like for you?
Yeah, I honestly wasn't sure. So when I started school, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I just went into like general business and then ended up, transferring into marketing. Um, but I just knew like I wanted to work in sports.
Yeah.
And so, like, while Paige was coaching, I worked with her SID at Point University for a little while. I just volunteered with him because I needed something on my resume besides Army stuff. And
Yeah.
then he put me in touch with the people at Auburn. And so I interned with them for a year in the communications department. I was the, SID for women's tennis while, I was still in school. And then right after I graduated, they hired me on like part-time. And
Yeah.
I was the sports information director for women's tennis and track, and then
What
about a
what is it?
year after
What
that
does
in
a sports
2017.
information director do? Like, what is
Yeah.
your job? Like, do you push out social media? Do you do marketing? Like, what is that?
It's more of like the communication side. So I would do like all the previews, recaps and stuff for the
Oh,
games. I would do social media. I would work with the athletes and coaches on like interviews and stuff like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Anyway, go on. I just wanted to kind of clarify. So you got hired part time, and then do you eventually land a full time gig with them, or what does that look like?
Yeah. Yeah, so the guy that I worked with at Point University got hired on as like our director of social media, and he needed help. He was the only one, and so he asked me if I wanted to, jump into a full-time role, and I was like, absolutely, yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, I jumped into that full-time role, loved it. Like I was getting paid to go to games and tweet about them, and that was pretty cool. And then he ended up leaving to go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I just slid up into his role and have been there ever since.
It's incredible. Tell me, what do you, so that's work, but also I assume you probably really enjoy it, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
assume that is like something that, just really feeds you. What, what, what are you doing in your leisure time? Like, what is something that you're enjoying, outside of that? Do you have any hobbies, things that you want to be able to, do, but you haven't, or like, what does all that look like? Like, what is your off times? I mean, I know you're a father and whatnot, but what are the joy things that you find?
Yeah, so for a long time, I didn't really have anything. I was just trying to figure that out, because,
Yeah,
when I was in the army was my hobby,
hobby.
and when I got out of the army, that's kind of when life hit me, it was like, what am I going to do now? Like I
Yeah,
can't, just go, do soccer or go do pick up
yeah,
basketball or anything
yeah,
like
yeah,
that. Like there are ways to do that, but here in Auburn, there aren't a ton of amputees. So,
yeah,
it's not like we can just all go do wheelchair basketball together. And so
yeah,
I didn't really have anything for a long time. And it kind of, I'll be honest with you, like it affected my health, it affected my
yeah,
mental health.
yeah,
Um, and I just worked all the time. Like I just literally just locked into work and then I, focus on my kids and stuff like that. And it wasn't good. I was in an unhealthy space. I was gaining
yeah,
a lot of weight. I was in my legs less and less.
yeah,
And then I found my, a gym, Iron Tribe. I had
yeah,
tried some different CrossFit gyms and stuff like that.
yeah,
But nowhere where like somebody was willing to like work with me on like,
yeah,
figuring things out.
yeah,
Everybody just kind of wanted to throw me into like what the
yeah.
general population was doing, which, as you know, as an amputee is hard. You
You're
can't
not.
just jump into
Yeah,
doing burpees and stuff like that. And
yeah.
so I found Iron Tribe, and now that's become, a huge part of my life is the fitness side of things. Because
So,
they've basically taught me, worked with me to figure out how to do things like deadlifting and squats and stuff like that. Skipped leg day for 11 years, and then
yeah,
now I'm expected to do it all the
yeah,
time, and it's been good for my family. My Paige
yeah,
works out there, and my kids come and hang out and work out there all the time, and
yeah.
it's been really good for all of us, honestly.
So before I want to talk more about Iron Tribe and some of the things that you're doing with them, but why is it, and I know the answer, but I'm going to pretend like I don't. Why is it that you weren't in your legs as much? Why weren't you like, walking around using your prosthetics? Did your legs get bigger? Did they not fit well? Was it painful? What was the what is a reason that you would not use them?
Yeah, so when you're not like exercising regularly and stuff, like your legs do get bigger and change shape and stuff like that. And you start losing some of that muscle mass and like those legs, I mean, they're heavy, and
Yeah,
so, just walking long distances, if you're not actively like, you know, working out and stuff like that, walking long distances is going to be hard. Even like if you have regular legs, if you're not doing things, like little things become hard, but when your legs start changing shape, you start getting, all these hot spots on your legs
yeah.
um, and it becomes really painful and hard to do, and honestly, when I started working out, I thought, well, I mean, this is probably gonna take me out of my legs more, but it actually had the complete opposite effect.
So you're laying in a hospital bed, Walter Reed. Even during your recovery, did you ever imagine that you would have the ability to be as active and engaged as you have been? Like, does that seem like an option for you at the time?
No, not at all. I mean, even in physical therapy, like we did some things like with my legs on and stuff like that, but it was mostly like upper body and core focused.
Yeah,
Never really like lower body focused. Most of my lower body stuff came in occupational therapy, where it
yeah,
was like getting myself off the ground,
yeah,
like transitioning from wheelchair to, the
yeah.
toilet or bed or anything like
Repetitions.
that.
Yeah,
And so that's where most of my lower body stuff came in. And Even like, we did, I think I worked with you on like going up and down the ramp,
Oh
learning how
yeah,
to do
yeah,
that. And then we
yeah.
did
Going down the
the
stairs.
video
Remember that?
games where oh yeah, yeah. Um,
But yeah, the
yeah,
video
remember
games. Yeah, we
that because there's a
put you.
lot of stairs in
Yeah,
DC,
yeah,
which people don't think about.
yeah. I think I have
But
some
yeah, so
video.
a lot of my lower body stuff.
Yeah. Well,
Go ahead.
so okay, so let's get back to Iron Tram. Now you have an event coming up, and I want to talk about that event. They're calling well, you call it the Wetzel. I think that
Yeah.
and I remember when I hate CrossFit personally, but when I did do CrossFit, I remember they had like the Murph, and that was a big kind of homage to a military service member, I believe, and there was a kind of
Hmm.
whole kind of list of things that you'd have to do. So with Iron Tribe, like tell me what made you think like you wanted to do something more than just kind of taking care of yourself? Like what is the Wetzel? How did it become? Tell us that story.
Yeah. So when I originally started with Iron Tribe, I told them like one of my goals was to do the Murph. Because my Alive Day is around Memorial Day every year, and
Yeah.
some days it's on the same day as Memorial Day. And like kind of later on, it started to get harder, like how do I celebrate being alive? Like one of my best friends got killed in Afghanistan. And so it's hard for me to celebrate being alive when
Yeah.
he's not with us. And so I wanted to do something. I started getting to the point where I wanted to do something where I could feel the pain of
Yeah.
him being gone on
Oh,
that day. And so like the first year I thought about this, I got a tattoo and I was like, well, like I can do that, but like eventually I'm going to run out of real estate on my body. And
yeah.
so I started thinking about like what is it I can do that's healthy that, can I can still feel that in a good way. And
Yeah.
so the Murph was going to be it. I was like, I want to do that this year. This was a few years ago, but I was like, I want to do it this year. And so I can feel that and remember him and honor him and his life in that,
Yeah.
And so I started training for that. And as I'm training for that, I'm getting good at, other things. I'm learning to squat and stuff like that. And um, so my coach, who, he's now one of my best friends, he, writes this workout for me and names it after me.
Oh wow.
And it's all of a lot of the movements that I've learned to do along the way, and kind of everything's kind of got its thing. And so that year we did the Murph, around Memorial Day when you're supposed to do it. And then like in June, we did the Wetzel last year. And it was good. It was great. And I, accomplished my goals and everything. And then this year, the Auburn Student Veterans Association, they have a big event every year and they usually base it around the Murph. And so they wanted to change it since I'm local. I work at Auburn.
Yeah.
They were like, why don't we do the Wetzel? Because, that it just
Yeah.
adds more meaning to people
Yeah.
around here.
Absolutely.
And so that's kind of how the event came around. We had a kind of smaller event last year, but now it's starting to turn into a bigger event. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, it's
Yeah. And you
exciting.
guys, I mean, it's a big deal. Like you have merch now, right? You
Yep.
have some other stuff. So tell me about the workout itself. Like what if I were to do the well, first of all, can people do it not there at Auburn? Can we like do like
Yeah.
a virtual Wetzel at home or
Yeah.
like at our local gyms? Is that an option?
Oh yeah, that's absolutely. I mean, we encourage people to do that, and that we're selling shirts and stuff. So if you want to have like a shirt, I don't know. I think we're at the point now where we can't get it to you by the event, but it's like the event's next weekend, March 22nd, and we encourage people to do it virtually because we want to, eventually make this thing bigger, right? And
Yeah.
start using all the proceeds. Right now, all the proceeds are going to the Auburn Student Veterans Association, but eventually we
Awesome.
want it to go towards veterans and helping them kind
Programs.
of get
Yeah.
their lives back on track.
It's awesome.
But basically, the workout is it starts out with a 400-meter overhead carry with a 35-pound plate.
Okay.
I think it's 25 for women. And then So you do the 400-meter overhead carry, and then you come directly in and you do the assault bike with only arms because I don't do the
Yeah.
bike with my legs for 5 minutes and max calories, and then you do 31 deadlifts at 115. And I think it's 85 for women. And then you do 12 inchworms with 3 push-ups at the end of
Yeah.
each one.
Yeah.
Um, and then it goes into 5 minutes max calories on the rower,
Yeah.
and then 31 hang cleans at those same weights, and then 12 inchworms with 3 push-ups. And
So
then
you
right
want people
into
to
the
feel it
ski
for sure.
machine. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And then you go into the ski machine for 5 minutes max calories, and then 31 shoulder to overhead presses, and then 12 inchworms with 3 push-ups. And then when you think you're done, you have another 400-meter overhead carry to finish it all up.
Incredible. Dude, I'm so excited. Like, where can people learn more about it? And I'll link below. But where's the best place to kind of look? Is there social media? Is there a website? Like, where should I point people?
Yeah, so the website we're using this year is
Mm-hmm.
wardamwetzel.com.
Okay.
That'll give you all the information about the workout. It'll give you a little more information about me, and then also give you the link to like sign up and get a t-shirt and stuff like that.
Oh, dude, that's awesome. Um, you mentioned something that I want to make sure people understand. You in the Wetzel itself, there's some elements that you can't use your legs. How hard was it to figure out how to do cardio after being an amputee? So, like in the army, if we start gaining a little weight, we got to make height and weight every, 3 to 6 months. And we would just go out and run more, right? Maybe not as easy
Right.
for you. So, like, how did you find like a good way to hit that cardio? Is that kind of that good space that you found? Like, tell me about that.
Yeah, so it was honestly tough because like I have running legs, but I don't use them.
Yeah,
I just feel like with my knee heights being different sizes or heights and stuff like that, it's a lot of pressure on my back.
yeah,
And so I've never really used those. But learning how to do cardio with just your arms, like that's a whole different beast. I mean, from the time you're a kid all the way until you're an adult, you learn like if you're going to do cardio, you're going to run, you're going to ride a
yeah,
bike with your legs, you're going to do something like that.
yeah,
And so, like at Walter Reed, I did swimming, which was great. But like then I had to learn how to like ride. I have a hand cycle. I had to learn
yeah,
how to ride a bike, with
yeah,
with just my arms, and even on the assault bike, like that's just my arms, and I mean, it's hard to get back
yeah,
into like good cardio because that's not your arms aren't used to being conditioned like that.
yeah, yeah,
They're more like short, quick burst rather than, in, endurance, right? And so that was honestly, it was hard
yeah.
to get back into cardio.
Yeah. Well, we do got to move forward, but I'm excited about the Wetzel. I can't wait to see, how it goes. I hope it blows up, and that's going to be such an exciting event to keep following. I do want to mention, we're going to get to our quick fire queries because we do have to start wrapping things up, but you know. Josh has a story that's his, and a lot of our guys have different stories, and you're going to learn about all these people different ways, and everybody finds independence in different ways. Some of the guys will be woodworkers. They kind of find that therapy in crafting. Some people went right back to work. Some people decided like they just want to enjoy life. Like I know a couple guys like make duck calls, and like to go hunting, and that's their jam. But one thing that I've always been so impressed by you is that you have a huge variety of things that you've chosen to dive into. Not only like being a father is such a gift, and we haven't gotten to talk too much about God and religion and His place in your life, and kind of cradling you guys away. But I did want to mention, I think it's a couple years ago, Paige and you decided that you wanted to put your story on paper, and you published a book with her, called Beautifully Broken, which is right here. And, I had a chance to kind of reread through your story. And a huge part of this is kind of your testimony. It gives kind of that space where you can not only tell your story, but kind of show how instrumental your faith was in this, kind of growth. Marriage is hard, parenthood is hard, life is hard, but, tell me, can you, hopefully you feel comfortable with just kind of, exploring a little about your faith and how that's kind of brought you here as well.
Yeah. And my faith honestly has been a huge part of my recovery. Like right off the bat, like I knew like without God, I wasn't going to be able to do it. I grew up in a, small Southern Baptist church. My grandmother, made sure I was in church every Sunday,
Yeah.
Wednesday, Sunday night.
Yeah.
Um, and honestly, it wasn't until like this injury that I really started to like really lean on God. And then, when we got out of Walter Reed, like things got real hard, like because Walter
Mhm.
Reed is like this perfect utopian bubble. You're there with people that are like you. You're there with, some of the most amazing doctors and therapists and stuff in the world. And then you leave and there's nobody like you, and you're expected to, um, you know, just pick up where you left off, like
Yeah.
your marriage, you with your marriage, and then you've got kids and you're figuring out life, and that's hard. And honestly, me and Paige have been in some bad areas, and God's just come around at just the right time, and with the right things and the right people. Just to get us back, centered in our marriage. And I think without God, like we wouldn't be where we are now. We probably wouldn't be married anymore. And so, God has been a huge part of that.
Yeah. Well, you and me both. I remember, what was interesting. I'm a Christian, as well, and I remember when I was going through my injuries, the craziest thing that happened to me when I was in this burning vehicle and fire was all around me was the peace that I had, that I was okay with dying at that point. I was like, well, I'll be in heaven in a few minutes. So go ahead and do your work on me. And I remember it was such a weird, like bizarre, um, but also so comforting space to know, like, I'm on the cusp of entering my next life, and that life in a perfect body without injury, and to kind of live in that space, in heaven. And I can't tell people enough, like having a faith like that is such a powerful and moving thing that's not only motivating, but it does give you purpose. It does give you place. And anyway, for you guys, if you haven't read this, I do encourage you to buy it. Are you guys working on another book by chance? I don't know. You know.
No, not yet, at least.
But our Boston Red Sox story is in there. There's a lot of other stuff, stories in here that I do encourage you to, check it out. But I appreciate you sharing that. I think that it's a kind of chaotic space in our world right now, and so just having, being anchored to something, that kind of really is able to pull you forward, and kind of get your heads out of all the chaos is such a, wonderful thing. And so thank you, for sharing that part of it. Okay, so we're going to transition. We're kind of in our last kind of stage here, and we're going to do what I call our quick fire queries. Now, it's basically like, I just want you, first thing that comes to your head, I don't want you to overthink things, but we're going to move through these pretty quickly. There's going to be 10 questions, and it'll be a good time. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. If you could have dinner with any celebrity or historical figure, who would it be and why?
Ooh, that's tough. That's tough. Dinner with a historical figure. I'd say Ted Williams.
Oh
Even
yeah.
though he's not alive anymore, obviously, but best hitter to ever play the game, and he was the reason I became a Red Sox fan. I
Oh
did
man.
a book report on him when I was in third grade, and I was like, just gonna be a Red Sox fan. Best hitter in the world, played for
Yeah.
the Red Sox. Why not be a fan of them?
Yeah, that's amazing. I was gonna say Bo Jackson, but Auburn alum, one of the greatest natural athletes of all time. But Ted
Oh
Williams,
yeah.
that's a banger right there. That's awesome. All right, number two, what's a movie or TV show that you think everybody should watch at least once?
Ooh, movie or TV show that everybody should watch at least once. Um, I would say movie would be We Were Soldiers. I love that movie. It's one of my favorite movies. How Moore and his wife Julie Moore, they, were stationed at Fort Benning down here for a little while. The base was actually named after them for a little while. Now it's Fort Benning again. But man, their family was just incredible, and they did a lot for the military and how spouses find out about their husbands when they either killed in combat or wounded in combat, and it just, shows like what the struggle of battle is and going into something completely unknown. But yeah, it's an incredible movie.
We Were Soldiers. That is actually my all-time favorite military movie. And I tell people the same thing all the time. It's also very graphic. It hurts real, real
Yeah,
deep, but
yeah.
it's real. Like it's a very well done military movie. And I do like how they have the perspective of the wives, the family at home as well as the soldier itself. Another one that felt similar to me was Fury, the one with Brad Pitt, which is not a real
Oh
story,
yeah,
but
yeah.
that one was a good one too. But all right,
Yeah,
number
that's a great
three.
movie as well.
Number three. Okay, best concert you've ever been to.
Ooh, this is gonna be crazy.
Give it to
I
me.
haven't been to a ton of concerts in my life. Maybe I could probably count them on one hand. But Creed, when I was a kid,
Yeah,
was
cool.
my first ever concert, and it was absolutely electric.
Oh man, can you take me higher?
Yep.
That's
Right at the height
amazing.
of Creed, too. It was amazing.
Yeah. Oh man, that's awesome. All right. Number four. If you had to pick a theme song for your life, what would it be?
Ooh, a theme song for my life. Ooh, that one's tough.
Yeah, because you actually have to think of like titles
That's
of
tough.
songs and stuff. Hmm.
Yeah.
How about this?
Um,
Give me one of your favorite current songs. How about that? Something that you're jamming out to these days.
all right, this is gonna be another weird one. All right. So this could be the uh the theme song for my life, but there's a deeper meaning and I'll get to it. So in the movie Sing, right?
Yeah.
Johnny, the gorilla, right?
Yeah.
Sings his song. He battles through a lot of
Yeah.
things. He learns how to play the piano and stuff like that. And that song fires me up every time. And then the song from Sing 2, I don't even know the name of it. I don't even know the words, but
We're
fires
gonna
me up
get
every
it.
time. Because when I was a kid, there was a guy, one of my best friends growing up had an uncle, and he was really into fitness and stuff like that. And he said, if you want to get better, you got to go to the deepest, darkest part of the jungle and take down the alpha male, the silverback gorilla.
Yeah.
And so the silverback gorilla is kind of like my, inner personality. Like if you want to be the biggest and the baddest, you got to go take down the alpha male. And
Yeah.
so Johnny from Sing 2 and Sing
I love
did
it.
that.
Uh, that is crazy. I wasn't gonna pull that from this conversation, but you know what? Like I didn't script that in there, so that's something I didn't expect. All right, number five. What's a hidden talent or hobby most people don't know that you have?
Hidden talent or hobby. Um, that one's kind of tough too. Um, I like to play video games. When
Yeah.
I was in before I joined the army, I was ambitious and wanted to be a pro Halo player.
Oh,
Obviously, I did not become a pro Halo player, but I'm still pretty good on the sticks.
okay, yeah.
I can still get after it pretty good.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, speaking of which, we are having a gaming an adaptive gaming event up at Travis Mills Foundation, which we'll be doing a lot of gaming. I gotta get you the info on that. All right,
Yeah.
let's see. Number six, what's one food you could eat every day and never get sick of?
Tacos. Tacos is
Tacos.
it. Tacos are the most versatile food on the planet. You can have breakfast tacos, you can have lunch tacos, dinner tacos, dessert tacos. Most
Oh,
versatile food on the planet.
man, I'm right there with you. I love tacos. All right, number seven, if you could trade places with anybody for one day, who would it be?
Ooh, trade places with anybody for one day. Who would it be? Uh, Honestly, this is going to be kind of crazy too, but like the president of the United States, Donald Trump,
Yeah.
just if I could just be president for a day, because like I'm just so curious. I want to know the secrets. Like I don't want to tell anybody the secrets, but
Just
I just want to know
yeah.
the secrets, you know?
Yeah. And so like that one day all policy would go away. You would just like go
Yeah,
in and like open up all those files. Like, oh my gosh, JFK's killer
right.
was. Oh my gosh, this conspiracy was. Oh my gosh, we have aliens at, and just like know all the secrets.
Exactly. Well, I
Yeah.
wouldn't do any presidential things at all. I would just like research it with like what can I learn that day?
That's amazing. I love that. All right. Oh my gosh, the secret to COVID was actually, yeah. All
Yep.
right.
Yep.
Number eight. What is the last book that you read? That you've read?
The last book that I read was actually a biography by a guy I work out with. His name's Rob Pate. He played football here at Auburn. That's the last book I finished. I'm currently reading what's the name of it? Something something unapologetic hospitality or something like that,
Yeah.
or uncommon
Cool.
hospitality, something like that. It's really good though.
Cool. All right. Number nine. We're almost there. What is one app on your phone that you cannot live without?
Ooh, that's tough. I'd have to say Instagram right now. Like TikTok is great, but I've tried to start weaning myself off of TikTok just because you never know if it's actually going to disappear or not. But you just like people are so creative now, and
Yeah.
they just like you learn so much stuff in these videos. I've learned so much in my adult life of things that I probably should have known my entire life, but I
Yeah.
didn't through Instagram videos.
Yeah, that's amazing. There's a TikToker that we follow, and she always starts off her TikToks with "everyone's so creative," and then goes into whatever the
Yeah.
creative thing is. But no, that's
Yep.
cool. Yeah, Instagram. I love Instagram. It's also I feel like it's so much less political chaos than some of the other socials, and so you can just choose to look through all the beautiful like food or travel or your friends, and I think it's a great medium. Okay, last
Yep.
one. What do you cherish most about your wife, Paige?
Uh, Honestly, her grace. I'm I'm a knucklehead, and I have been my entire life. And I grew up most of my life as an only child. My siblings were born when I was 12. And they're my half siblings, so we never lived together. And so I never learned to share anything or like report to anybody or like, like I've just kind of gone through life on my own, right?
Yeah,
For the most part. And um, a lot of times I don't think about other people first. I'm naturally a very selfish person, and it's and that, here at 38 years old, I'm still trying to learn and be better at, and it's a daily struggle. But through everything that I've been through and through everything that I've put Paige through in our life and in our marriage, like she just has stayed with me. She's been my rock the entire time, and forgives me for all the knucklehead things that I do. And so I would say her grace is just absolutely incredible. She's just
yeah,
an amazing woman.
Yeah, well, she's a gem. I'm thrilled to see both of you guys thrive. And as we get to the end of the podcast, I want to give you one last kind of sage stage, is what we call it, and it gives you an opportunity to just like leave some wisdom, words of wisdom, some guidance. I have a lot of OT students that listen to the podcast, and I would love for them to kind of learn from you from a patient's perspective. Like, the floor is yours. Like, what are some of the last things? How do you want to leave your legacy on the OT Unleashed podcast?
Yeah. So I'll go with two things. First is more directed towards like OTs and stuff like that. One thing I learned, while at Walter Reed was the importance of like relating to somebody. I think you did a phenomenal job of that. Like you related to people that were in all kinds of different walks of life, right? People that were single, people that had kids, people that are from poor backgrounds, people that from wealthy backgrounds, people that played sports, didn't play sports, like whatever it was, like you found ways to relate to them. And
Yeah,
I think that was so important in my recovery because, things like, going to the Red Sox game, like a
yeah,
normal OT probably wouldn't think about that or do
yeah.
something like that. We went to the batting cages one day and, I
Oh
was thinking about that the
yeah,
other day and got
yeah,
emotional. And
yeah. I remember
that was
that.
huge for me in my like, internal recovery as
Yeah,
well, just being able to do that and experience that again, having played college baseball. And I just, I would encourage other OTs, like find ways to relate to your people, no matter how crazy it is, even if you're making like an arm brace with the Batman symbol on it, like anything that you can do
yeah,
to bring a smile to your patient's face is going to help them in their recovery more than just going through the motions and checking the boxes, right? Like being able to give them some humor and like being able to laugh and smile about things is huge for people.
yeah,
And then the second thing I would say, one thing I've learned since leaving Walter Reed was just that importance of community. Like I said, when you're in the Army, you do, I like to call it trauma bonding, right? So you
yeah,
get real close with the people that you deploy with through, terrible training. You go through these deployments and they're really hard, and you grow really close with these guys, and then you leave them
yeah,
and that's hard. And then like, when you're at Walter Reed, you're there with a lot of people just like you, double amputees, triple amputees, single amputees, quadruple amputees. We were there with two quadruple amputees at the time. And you do life with them, your wives get to know each other. They get to become really good friends. You become friends with those amputees, but you don't all just move to the same place when you
yeah,
leave. And so you lose that community again. And that was one thing I learned the hard way when I left Walter Reed. We moved to Auburn, where we're about 3 hours away from our family. And I didn't have that community, like I didn't have like good dude friends that I could hang out with. And honestly, like that's why working out at this gym has been so huge for me because I'm there with
yeah, yeah,
another group of people, that community. And so that's, being in community is more healing than a lot of things. And so, for other veterans that are out there listening and struggling, like it's important to find that community again and find people that you can do life with because you're not made to go through life alone. And so get out there, find your community, find your people, and find people that are willing to help keep you accountable in life and have
yeah,
the hard conversations with you
yeah,
and do hard things with you because those are the people that are going to help you through life the most.
yeah. Man, great words. I mean, great advice. I cannot reflect back on that. Like it is everything to have that. And it doesn't have to be a large community, it doesn't have to be a small community, and you could have multiple communities too. Like
Right.
it. I know you have a big tight bond with a lot of those amputee families that you recovered with. Taylor Morris and the Mills and the Smiths and all those guys are such a huge part of your life. even though they're not right there. But I think you hit the nail on the head. And I say the same thing in the gaming space, is it's great to be gamers and to be able to play with people online, but to be able to be in person with somebody, it really builds a different type of bond, and have somebody there close and have that community close is such a massive thing. So, well, Josh, thank you so much. I mean, this has been way more than I hoped it would be, and you've been such a great guest. And I can't thank you enough for being on, and I can't wait to see what happens with the Wetzel. I hope it's a huge success, and and if you're in the Auburn area, jump over to Iron Tribe. Sounds like a great family there. And give them some love. Find your way back to health. And go that direction. But, unfortunately, it is time to say goodbye. My friends, keep exploring, keep dreaming, and continue to unleash the extraordinary in the ordinary. Thank you for joining us on the OT Unleashed podcast. Thank you, Josh, for joining us. And we always want to encourage you to engage, cultivate, and unleash. Have a great day. Bye.